Professor, you made a pretty intriguing statement yesterday at your conference. You said that in times of crisis, festivals are the solution for theater productions. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think they are one solution.
One of them.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
I think there's a sense of, I talked yesterday about possibility and probability, about very famous, very well-established companies doing big shows that are probably going to be successful, rubbing shoulders with work that possibly will be successful and that will possibly have a future from emergent artists. And I think to be in a place like Sibiu, where for perhaps these 10 days or 2 weeks, there is maybe the best theatre in the world in one small Transylvanian place.
It's not that small.
Well, yeah, but small compared to New York and Los Angeles. And so there's a sense for me where it kind of becomes a melting pot. And I think I was asked yesterday about the ways it might transform a community. And I don't really know here because I'm only here when the festival is here. But my belief and my hope is that the proximity that people have to these wonderful theatre events in the street, particularly I think in the street, in unexpected places, I think there's a sense where familiarity doesn't breed contempt, it breeds desire. And so the idea that people would become more familiar with theatre is for me a very positive thing.
That's right, but that doesn't connect in any way with the crisis times, meaning financial.
Oh, well, for sure. Well, at the moment I'm working in Australia where there really is no financial crisis, but I come from Europe and moved to Australia from London where crisis in the arts, and particularly in arts education, is very, very severe. And so historically, undergraduates had opportunities to make work and to get work wrong for the right reasons. But increasingly now, it's about employability. And so employability again becomes about probability, what will probably get me work. And so I feel that some of the opportunities that used to exist in European, British, when I say European, my paradigm is British, the opportunities that used to exist in those university contexts is dwindling. And I think a festival like this is able to select very tightly the most interesting, potentially interesting work, very diverse and very culture specific. So when I see a Japanese performance here, it's not kind of neutral Japanese. You know, if you see a Polish piece, it's not neutral. It's specific, and I think for me there's a sense of this culture specificity and the intimacy of nationality that works really well in this international context. So it feels like a small festival, even though every time I speak to Konstantin, it reminds me what a huge festival it is. But it feels intimate and very accessible.
What makes a show great? You write about greatest shows on earth.
Yeah, well, it's
you and your collaborators.
It's a very contentious title because the shows that are left out will always be greater than the shows that are included.
It's a subjective.
It's highly subjective and highly personal and emotional. What I wanted to avoid was the idea of a canon where we're told what the greatest shows are. I hope this book doesn't say these are the greatest shows. What these shows did and what made these shows great, I think they were great for the spectator who wrote about them. So there was a moment, a kind of rapport between performance and spectator. And they're generally spectators that are writing, not always, but generally spectators. So greatness, I think, very much is in the eye of the beholder, but there were some themes that ran through here. So there were some objectively great shows: Faust, Brooks, King Lear, Robert Lepage, Dragon's Trilogy, Jan Lauver's Isabella's Room, I think objectively great shows. But running alongside those were some kind of almost culturally invisible performances. And there's a sense where I think one of the values of this book is that it gives a kind of permanence to those very ephemeral, almost invisible performances that slid away without huge audiences sometimes. Not like Faust, which will live for a while and will live in the memory for a long time, but some very small performances that captured something. And there's a problem always with words to describe theatre. And so what I was proud of with this book, and I was much more curatorial than editorial, is that the voices that emerged are individual, idiosyncratic, intellectual, but also very, very emotional. The book is about connections, and they're written by people who were only this distance from the work they're writing about, so not a kind of borrowed sense of greatness.
Aren't you somehow troubled by the fact that theater is an ephemeral art? What stays after a performance is what remains in the memory of the audience, and maybe these books, and maybe a video copy which cannot express the energy of the.
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I am troubled by that, because the thing I love about theatre is its ephemerality, that it's here and it goes, and performers age and retire, and no longer the show is no longer in existence. It's not like a movie that we keep going back to. So on the one hand, I embrace that ephemerality. We get a once-only chance to see something, maybe. But I write, and I write about theatre. So I try in this book, this edited book, and in other books and articles to acknowledge the impossibility of cementing the work into something that it was not. But I hope that the descriptions and the analysis that occur in this book kind of add something, even as much that is valuable drifts away. So it's a kind of record. It's almost like a snapshot of work that took place from 1962 up until 2 years ago. That's the span of the work. And includes pieces like the Sydney Olympics opening event. I was fascinated when Peter Snow wrote about that. And the idea of this as a theatre event that said, for Peter Snow, a great deal about the culture that he lives in and the relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. Really fascinating. But yes, ephemerality is the thing I value in theatre. As a writer, it's the thing I struggle against.
You've been here for a few days, I think. Has any of the shows caught your eye, especially?
Well, I arrived late 2 nights ago. I saw a very remarkable piece of work last night, a Polish piece. But I've been here many years. I think I've been here probably 8 years now in different. So I've seen some really interesting pieces of work here, and some very small and unexpected, and others where I've travelled just to see the work. Faust, I flew to see. But I've been as impressed by work where I can't remember the name of the company or the name of the artist. It was fleeting. And there's a sense of, sometimes theatre outside of a theatre space feels like an imposition, like we're forcing theatre on people. I don't really feel that here, because I feel the opposite. People are passing by and they stop and they're arrested, and they're all ages, no ticket prices, beautiful weather normally. And people wandering around, things to do, but they stay for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, following street theatre processions. And there's a sense of, even though this is not my community, I almost feel more community here, more community engagement on my own part than anywhere else in the world. It's curious. The word family sounds trite, but I think it's about performance that matters, and it matters to the people who see it. Because in the street, if it doesn't matter, they walk away. And I don't see people walk away much here. I see people staying and following. And it's fascinating and invigorating.
Thank you very much, Professor. And we look forward to seeing you for the coming editions.
I hope so. Thank you.